And you want to know what multi-million rands worth of companies that are called media outlets for mainstream media do to small organizations like Afriforum fighting for the preservation of the culture of a racial minority and pro things that mainstream media tries to make sure looks as evil as possible? You want to know what they do? Well, they do a number of things actually, but I'll tell you the number one thing they do. They set you out, they target you, they say this is our target for this season. And then they end up doing the worst mistake ever. Instead of destroying you, they make you more famous because they handed Afriforum the exact ammunition to destroy them right back. So we are going to take our time with this episode, okay? Because this story and the background of this story matters enormously. And I know you as a South African have never heard of something called the TBE Corporation story. You've probably never even had it explained to you properly, if you have heard of it before. Some of you have never even heard of Afriforum. So these are very important stories that have been sitting quietly in the background of our nation that mainstream media has not been covering. Okay, they have been sitting on the background of South African politics for over 30 years. We also have global news that genuinely matters to every single South African, even if sometimes it feels like it's happening on the other side. It's too far, and summer, we are only worried about here. You'll understand. Because you see, Donald Trump announced on his 80th birthday, I know he's 80 years old, that's crazy. He announced that the war between America and Iran is over. The Strait of Hormuz, the most important oil shipping route on the planet, is reopening. And Trump did something he rarely does. He publicly criticized Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. You mostly see me mimicking him most of the time. My people of Israel. So that guy, he called him, in his own words, a very difficult guy. Not my words, Trump's words. He called Netanyahu a very difficult person, said he was effing crazy, and then made a decision that directly constrains what Israel can do, regardless of what Netanyahu wants. So Bibi could actually be facing a problem right now, because who said he wanted to end the war? See what I'm saying? And then the World Cup. Hey, this tournament is showing flames, everyone. Hey, this tournament is showing flames. Whether South Africa's winning or not, there are genuinely exciting fixtures tonight that you need to know in case you want to watch tonight after watching this episode. So pay attention, get comfortable. This is going to be a long one and there's a lot to unpack. Before we get into it, I just wanted to say hello and welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, consider hitting that like and subscribe button as hard as you possibly can. Share this video with those who are not so informed about South Africa's current affairs as they should. You can't rely on SABC nowadays. Now they just talk about what's going to make them money. They don't talk about what actually matters to you, the South African. I do, because I don't have any corporate company shoving money up my backside. So if you genuinely appreciate this content, consider hitting the like, subscribe button, share this video, and also you can consider buying me a coffee, links in the description below. Those donations go directly to my work and the channel. By the way, I do all this research myself. All of it. I film myself. It's me. I put the recording gadget here, I press record, and now it's me talking to you. I have to do all of this myself, all right? And your donations are very much appreciated. They keep me going even in days I wake up and I'm like, is this worth it? You know what I mean? So thank you. It keeps the lights on, keeps the coffees coming, and I get some biltong with the change. So yeah, if you've been watching this channel for a while now, you will know I have been very critical of how News24 covers stories involving Afriforum. Afriforum is, and I will continue to say this, the most patriotic civil rights organization in South Africa. Said it for months now. Now, there have been headlines from News24 about Afriforum that emphasize race in ways that flatten complicated stories into simple narratives. A tone that often feels less like natural reporting and more like building a cumulative case against a specific organization, story after story, month after month. And this week's News24 investigations team, led by journalist Kyle Cowan, who was genuinely a respected and experienced investigative journalist, by the way, with a very long track record on stories like the Guptas, the Gupta leaks, and the ESCOM files. He published what was clearly intended to be a major expose, right? Expose on Afriforum. Ooh, Afriforum's BEE payday. Empowerment critics invested 3 million rand through ANC financier. This is it for Afriforum. It's over. It's over. Like when the dark secret has been revealed in a Scooby-Doo episode and they finally find the killer and they rip the mask off of him and then they're like, it was you the whole time. People used to watch Scooby-Doo back in the day will relate. But then it backfired badly. Here's the actual substance of the story as News24 reported it. Back in 2013, Afriforum invested 3 million rand through an investment manager who traded JSE-listed stocks using a platform belonging to a company called TBE Stockbroking. By 2023, Afriforum's 3 million rand had grown to 4.8 million. News24's framing was essentially this. Their words, not mine. They said Afriforum, an organization that has spent years campaigning against BEE policy and against the ANC, was quietly making money through an investment vehicle connected to ANC-aligned interests. That's their story, right? The implication being hypocrisy, of course. Afriforum criticizes the system while benefiting from it. You see, everyone, this is why you should watch mainstream media all the time. Now, I want to take a moment here, okay? Because I think most South Africans, even people who follow politics closely, right, they do not actually understand what TBE Investment Corporation is, or why its connection to the ANC matters so much in the story. So let me give you the history properly, because News24 is mistaken on many points, and it is genuinely fascinating. The story, that is. And it is good to understand why the story is so much bigger than Afriforum. TBE Investment Corporation was founded in July 1992, 2 years before South Africa's first democratic election, with an initial capital investment of just 100,000 rand. Its founders included Nelson Mandela, who served as the chairman, Walter Sisulu, Reverend Beyers Nord, Dr. Enos Mabuza, and Vusi Khanyile. These are legends. But I want you to focus on who? Vusi Khanyile. Why? Because at the time, he was the head of ANC Finance. Guys, this is all in 1992. 1992. Gen Z, the whole Gen Z was not born. My parents didn't even meet yet. They didn't even meet yet. But like my whole generation wasn't even born. The sole shareholder of TBE at its founding, TBE Corporation at its founding, was called the Bato Trust, right? So the core funders, right, the sole shareholders of TBE, the TBE Corporation, at the time it was founded, it was a little organization called Bato Trust, right? Okay. And according to documents later uncovered in an archive at Fort Hare University, documents that the ANC actually tried to ban access to once journalists started reporting on them, the Bato Trust was established for what internal ANC documents described in their own words as the sole purpose of receiving dividends from TBE, with the explicit instruction that any profits received are donated to the ANC. Let that sink in. TBE Investment Corporation was, by the ANC's own internal documentation, structurally designed from its very own inception to channel Why do I keep saying Chanel? I've been watching too much Tyler. I've been watching too much Tyler. I saw on the World Cup. Now I'm thinking of all of her songs, Chanel instead of channel. It was to channel investment profits back to the ANC as a political party. That was the main aim of this TBE whole thing. It was structurally designed from the very beginning, its very inception, to channel investment profits back to the ANC as a political party. Okay, that was the ANC's plan for funding itself once it took power at the external funding it had relied on during the exile years dried up. TBE went on to grow into an enormous investment company. By various points in its history, it has held stakes in Vodacom, Shell, South Africa's downstream operations Capitec Bank, Kaya FM, Combined Motor Holdings, Altec Netstar, and dozens of other companies. Are you seeing the picture now? So don't call me a conspiracy theorist when I say most of these organizations are ANC funded and they have to follow the ANC's agenda as a whole. At one point, TBE's portfolio included more than 40 companies and managed assets worth over 6 billion rand. The Bato Trust has at various times held between 20 and 50% of TBE, depending on the year and the restructuring that has happened. And TBE stockbroking, the platform Afriforum, used their 3 million rand investment back in 2013, was at the time a wholly owned subsidiary of TBE Investment Corporation, meaning it was part of this exact same structure. So when you have News24 saying Afriforum invested through an ANC financier, what they are technically describing is accurate. TBE, through its relationship with Bato Trust, has a documented historical relationship with ANC funding that goes all the way back to the party's own funding documents for the trust. The Bato Trust has made significant donations to the ANC over the years, including a 15 million rand donation that was the single largest declared donation in the third quarter of 2021, according to IEC filings. But here's where Afriforum's response actually holds up under the scrutiny. Afriforum CEO Kali Kriel said Afriforum was not aware that in 2013, TBE Investments was actually linked to ANC funding when the investment was made. And honestly, if you look at how TBE Corporation presents itself publicly, this is actually plausible. Those guys are ghosts. Okay, TBE's own website and marketing materials describe it simply as just a pioneering black-owned investment company committed to transformation and community building. So I actually believe him. They don't lead with, we channel profits to the ANC. Who would have guessed that? That story is buried in old Mail and Guardians and Sunday Times investigations from 2007 and 2010, not in TBE's current corporate messaging. So how was someone supposed to know that? Are you telling me that Kali Kriel had to take time out of his schedule to look at these old Mail and Guardian and Sunday Times newspapers from 2007 and 2010 talking about TBE's relationship with the ANC? How on earth was he supposed to know that? It's like if you're friends with someone and then I tell you many years ago he was arrested for having CP, child pornography, on his laptop. How did you know that? You wouldn't have known that. That was like 20 years ago. I'm just telling you because I knew him 20 years ago, and that's why I'm not his friend, right? You can't know the whole ANC's funding history. You can't know all their ordinary investors, and you cannot know the civil society organizations managing their reserve funds. So Kali Kriel